Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's October 17th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And in the end, the day was just a range day. Here's your overnight highs. Here's your overnight lows down here, and you can see we got outside of it briefly up here. Um, you really couldn't treat this like a failed breakout, though. Uh, Only because you had this trend line working up, but you drew it off these first two swings. This looks like a spike. I mean, this is a spike up, and then we kind of started going sideways. So you got to draw that trend line and see what happens when it comes back. And of course, it turns off up perfectly off of that, then turns up again. You don't really get a setup here. Um, but the one thing that would clue you in that when we got this close outside and started trending down was you want to draw your measured leg right here, which this would have been your first leg, and then your second leg would start here. And when you don't get anywhere close to that and prices turn down, generally you're going to trend pretty strongly in the other direction. Uh, and what you got to look at here is this gap on the daily. Once we started trending down, that would be my first target, and that was 29.91 and a quarter. You can see right there. That's what that red is. Um, this is where we closed yesterday. This is where we opened today. So on the daily chart, you don't have this part in the blue. You just have where you closed yesterday and where you opened right here today. And so there's a gap on that daily chart. And generally prices try to fill that gap pretty quickly. And so once we started heading down, that was your target. That was your first target. Yeah, we could have gone lower, but that's your first target. And when we bounced there, you had to assume, hey, that was probably our what we were doing. We're working to fill that target. We filled it. And now we started working back higher again. We never got back outside of the daily price action. We just kind of faltered off here, and there wasn't really a lot of volume after that point. After about 11 o'clock, there's not much volume there, just not much movement. Um, it was just a flat kind of range day, and this whole thing is a bigger range. We traded up, we traded down, and then we attempted to trade back up again. So that's the bigger picture today. But again, the only real clue you have was when we couldn't go higher here and started trending down. First thing I'm going to assume is we're headed to fill this gap. And the fact that we didn't, we came up that short on a target on a measured move leads me to believe that, hey, we're probably going, that tells you you're going to have a bigger move to the downside. And you can see we had a pretty nice move down. We actually traded down from 3008 to 2991 or so. Actually 2990, I would say. So, we got an 18-point move down there. It doesn't look like that far because I backed out at a really high level here, just so you could see the bigger picture. But that's an 18-point move, which is a pretty good move for the ES on a day. So let's back out. We'll talk about the trades. And right here, this looked a little bit sideways almost. We had some resistance here, and then we moved up, and you had to be real careful with getting long into this resistance. I talked about most of all this stuff in the mid-morning chart, and so you would have. We talked about being careful getting long into this until it proved it wasn't holding anymore, and this is exactly why. Because look what happens. It touches it a few times, and then the next thing you know, we're racing down, and once we started racing down, just as I talked about in that mid-morning chart, this would be your first target if we keep going, if we start trending lower, because prices want to fill those gaps quickly. Price charts do not like gaps on them, and they like to fill them quickly. So keep that in mind. And we filled that gap, and we traded up from there, and just kind of traded. I don't even think we really traded in the middle of the uh, day's range. We really kind of traded um, shy of that. So black line is where we closed, and your lows were down here and your highs are up there. So uh, we actually maybe we closed in the upper half of the range. It's close to, I guess it is close to the middle. If you drew the lines, it'd make it a little easier to see. But anyway, that's not really that big a relevant deal. But early on, like we were going to have a two-tiered channel, and I know one guy texted me here. He tried to get short, I think, right here. He thought it was a failed second entry long. Hopefully, if you see my chart, you see why that wasn't a very good idea. First of all, there was support across there. So you're going short right into support. But the biggest thing is the trend line possibility coming up through there, which it confirms it right there and moves on. This would have been the place to enter right here if we were right back into that resistance. It pushes on through, but you don't know that, and I think it's a little too risky right there. I went back and forth whether or not to make that one green. Your better entry was right here, but this is the one that would have got the runner, although it wouldn't have been a real big runner. So anyway, let's back out and talk about the trades, and we'll wrap it up. 7 o'clock came right here. Notice we were trending down. We got a little trend line here. We get a break. And you actually get a second entry short right there. I didn't mark this one because it wasn't 7 o'clock yet. 7 o'clock came on this little move up and at the start of this bar. But notice that that's a lower high, and it actually broke higher first. And look how bearish that is. It's kind of right into these lows. This would have been... you wouldn't have had this line here yet, but at this point, I would have been looking at this like a range day. And there's a possibility there might have been a trend off of this swing at that point too. So I like, just to be that bearish, I like going short there. You would think we may be going to fill. Actually, the gap wouldn't be there yet because we haven't opened yet, but you would think we would be heading down to close closer to, open closer to this because prices like to net, kind of navigate back to those areas. So that would have been the target I was looking at when I got short here. But when it bounced right here, you got to draw that trend line. This still turns out to be a good trade, but it doesn't. That's the thing about these big bearish bars. If they're not in a big, strong trend, a lot of times they're traps, and they will trap you. Like right here, notice how it just ticked a tick or two. Look how bearish that looks, and it ticks a tick or two, and then it jumps and shoots up. So, but this is a second entry short here. Notice that low, first entry, you try to go higher, and it's a second entry short. It's not a perfect one, but it's still a second entry short. And, I would, if this would have been my first target, these lows, then this would have been my next one. We didn't get anywhere near that. We actually bounced, and you can't go long. There's a second entry long there too, and we are a little bit away from the EMA, but I'd wait on the high or low, and that doesn't come till here. And we actually broke lower and turned up and made that little 2-bar matching high, and that's just a first entry long off the top. So I would skip that one. You do get a failed second entry short here, which is the one you generally like, but now you're going long right into this resistance, and look what happens again. And so when you tested it once and then again, and you got that big bearish bar, I like going short. And it could be that we're going into a tight range right there, which is what it looks like. But you've also still got to be now concerned about this trend line, and it does get confirmed right here. But the other trader, I think he had it drawn something. That's the way you would want to draw that regardless. But either way, you still see there's a break. So all you need is one tick lower, and it can reverse. So even if you drew that trend line right there, which that's valid, it doesn't really get confirmed because we break through it. But that doesn't mean it's not valid. It just means it's a real short-term trend, and you get your break, and all you had to do was go one tick lower. It couldn't even get one tick lower because it bounced here. But notice my signal bar is not very good, so I didn't take it. You get your high or low here, which is the one you would probably want to enter since you didn't have a very good signal bar, and now it's right back into that resistance there. Not a good place. So hopefully you get a little breakout pullback. But guess what? You don't. It just keeps going up, and it hits the midline, turns back down. You don't really get a good chance to go short here. There is a failed second entry long, but you just saw why you don't want to do that in an uptrend. There's not much room here. So you're looking for longs. This would have been a great second entry long right here. Actually, your second entry long was here. I take that back. But you get your break, and you come back, but it's just not a very good signal bar again. This is one of those days where I didn't get very good signal bars. If you had a good signal bar, I wouldn't be afraid to go long there. And notice you get back up into this resistance, and you test it a few times, and all of a sudden it just sells off. And I think right around somewhere in here, there was the news on the oil. Actually, I think that was 10 o'clock, so that was right here on this little stretch down. So, um, but anyway, the first opportunity you get to go long, you draw that trend line right there, and you really got a double top, and then a first entry, and then now you got two legs down, and you get a little second entry long. But notice that low first entry, you go higher, and when it turns back down, it's actually broke higher and turned and went out the other side. That's a second entry short right there, and I like that. I don't if you waited till this bar to close, rather than putting a sell stop right there, which you could, that's still a really bearish bar. But what I'd do is let this break lower and drop a limit order back here, either even one tick below that one, or that would be even with this one, or even with this one, or maybe even a tick back in, and you could have gotten filled all the way back to even with that bar, really, because it ticked higher again, and then the bottom drops on out. So that was a nice little trade right there, and you could have had a runner here. And this is technically a first entry short, but that's your first break of that trend line. But at this point, you got to be thinking we're headed down here. So notice there's two swings back to the EMA right there and a nice bearish bar, and you got a little room to get out. I like going short there. You had to be quick on this one because this is where that news item hit. But this bar was pretty much formed before that happens. I don't really know if the news caused that, but it did move really quickly. And then it took it back just as quickly. So I'm guessing that was the 10 o'clock, something to do with the oil reports or something. We don't care why. Just be, generally oil doesn't affect the ES a whole lot. It may cause it to move real quick for just a second like that, but generally oil, occasionally the ES will align itself with oil and kind of move hand in hand with it. But for the most part, unless there's an oil crunch or some kind of issue with oil going on that's serious, you don't have a lot of effect from the oil market on the ES lately. So, but that's two legs back. That's still like two legs back. So even though that we made a little lower low there, I'd treat that like a second entry, and boom. You get a lower high here, very neutral bar. You did have your overshoot, and notice now you got an equal distance move down here on this two-tiered channel. So look for prices to go up. I wouldn't trade this back up though. I'd wait till we get back up here and look for a short. We actually just kind of pushed right on through that trend line. You could have said, hey, there's a second entry short right here, but this is a good example of why you can't just take a second entry short, because this trend line is still working up right here. And you can see that. And you got your first close outside. You try to go higher. I might take that short, but again, not a very good signal bar. And then finally, you get a failed second entry long right here, but that's just too. Look how you're coming up. You get the close outside, a new high, but look how neutral that bar is. But then we try to go higher 3 more times, and you get a little higher low right here. Notice that low, that's a first entry, and that's a second entry short. So that many times to try to go higher, that's probably a decent place to enter because we're probably headed here. And we do get the break outside this bigger trend line, and now we got 2 legs down. I marked this one, but you're starting to get, once you've got this break and 2 legs down, every swing starts to get more risky. I marked this one just because it broke higher, it turned and went out that other side, and it is a failed second entry long. Notice that I first entry, second entry. We didn't really break higher there, but it's still the same thing. And I wouldn't go short right there without enough room to get out. We did go a little further, but you don't know that. And we could touch that to the tick and bounce. And you can see we went down there, touched that, and then it was uphill after that. So that's the only reason I still like that one. And this one is just, the reason I made it green and not red is because we didn't break higher, and it's a little bit congested looking across there. It's still a second entry short. You still look at that as a failed second entry long, a lot of different things. And then of course we bounce. And when you bounced right here, since this is played out, this bigger channel, and even this shorter term one's played out here, notice you got a close outside here and a couple of legs down. This is a good example. You get a close outside and 2 legs down and it reverses. And that's kind of what you expect to happen. So I like trying to, and look how far away we are from the EMA. I like considering this one as an aggressive trade to try to catch that important low of the day. And it does do just that. You're better off to wait on a better setup to prove this is going. There's a failed second entry short here, but look how congestive that is. Now, another trader asked me about a second entry short right here. There is a second entry short, but hopefully you can see, even if you move that to the very right of the chart, hopefully you can see why that's not a very good setup. It's not a real good signal bar on my chart to begin with. There is a shorter term little trend, and you get a close outside and a new high, but you still got some stem there, but look how congestive that looks. We've already had the break of the bigger channel and 2 legs down. Actually, we had 2 legs and that last little dip that you'll get sometimes. And then even on the shorter term, which is the brown channel there, we've got the close outside, 2 legs to a new low. That's really risky there. And if you do get fooled there, I don't think I would go long there, because it's not a good reversal pattern. Even though it turns out to be a short trap, it's not a very good. I just don't think you're going to trap many people on that, because it's not a very, I mean, hopefully you can see why that's not a very good setup. And definitely by the time it breaks higher, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars there, and they got stems, and you're just going sideways. Just stay out of that. We run up, and finally you get a pull back here. Notice you got a little double bottom there, so you're moving up first entry. You get a second leg up, so a second entry short that fails. And now we may be going higher. This actually broke lower and went out the other side. I like going long right there. I don't think I'd wait to go long here, but when it broke higher right there, after breaking lower first, I like going long just to see if it runs up and makes that new high. It actually goes a little bit higher than that. This one's tempting to go short right here. Either one of those, it's really a low risk because there's only about 3 ticks in it. You do have a break and a couple legs up to a new high. I didn't mark it, but you should at least probably mark it green, because if you like trying to catch those important highs and lows, that could be one. We could start down again. We might have another, or we might be just doing a range, which it looks like we really just end up in a range. I don't have that on there, but let me just put that on there for you so you can see, because not everybody can see this stuff as easily. So they're not perfectly matching, but you can see every time we come up here, we've got resistance right across there. We broke higher there, we stayed even, and we broke higher here and turned back down. So so you may take that short. And there's a lower high here, but again, now you got a break and you got to go short right into that, and you see what happens here. It's never a good idea to go short at the very end of a move like that, unless you're in a big downtrend or something. And this is not a big downtrend. And then of course you make that low, first entry, second entry, and now you're back above the EMA. You just want to have enough room to get out of here. You may let it break higher and drop a limit order a little further back, and you see it would have come back and filled you before it pushed on up. That took you into the 2 o'clock hour. This one came about 2:15, but I wouldn't take that. Now, if this failed second entry long with that big bearish bar would have come closer to 2 o'clock, I'd say maybe take that one, but not this one. So that's what I saw today. This is where it becomes really important to draw these short-term trend lines and follow the rules, because you can get whipsawed in all this. I mean, this is a pretty good downtrend, but once you get that break and a new low in place, especially with 2 swings, every swing lower after that becomes risky, because eventually one of them is going to fail. And you already risk one right here, so risking another one right in here, not a good idea. So keep that in mind. Same thing here, you're working up, you get a break here. You might risk that first one, but when you start risking these next ones, eventually one of them's going to fail and you're going to be on the wrong side. So if you're not managing a runner, then don't be entering any new trades. That's the part that many people forget about. They say, well, it was a second entry in a downtrend at the EMA, which that's our bread and butter trade. Matter of fact, that's one of our best trades. But you got to realize eventually a pullback to the EMA will reverse and fail. And so when is that likely to happen? After the trend line break and a new low's in place. You might take that first new swing, and a lot of times it's two legs down. So if you get a really good setup, you might take the second one, but you got to be careful on those third, anything after that. Every one of them, the longer it goes, the more suspect it is, especially if it's far away from the EMA. One thing about these is they are all close to the EMA. So the prices just weren't really getting away from the EMA for very long today. They were snapping back really quickly. So it's because it's not a real strong trend. This is more of a range day. When you get a real strong trend like this oops, didn't mean to do that. Like this right here, look how long prices are away from the EMA, because that's a strong trend, and look at it pointing straight up. There's a difference. This one is pointing straight down, but we're not getting that far away from it. In fact, we shoot back above it right here, and that's another clue. If we'd have gone a lot lower here, what you'd have probably looked for was a measured move down. But you got to assume our first target is just to fill that gap, because the market doesn't like those gaps. You can see that would have got you right down to the overnight low, but we never got there. This thing bounced and went the other way. This all played out. It bounced off that overnight low and went the other way. Not strongly, but it still went the other way. So hope that's helpful. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again Monday. I'm done for today. No chart lessons on Fridays anymore. So it'll be Monday before I'm back. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, next week I'm going to take a couple of days off. I'm not sure if I'm going to take Thursday, but I'm definitely going to take Friday off. We don't have any chart lessons on Friday anyway, but there definitely won't be a mid-morning chart because I'll be gone that morning. And I haven't decided yet. I may take Thursday off. I'll let you know as we get closer. But I'm going to be taking, I hadn't had a vacation. I didn't go on my annual Brazil trip this year because of my eye. The doctor didn't want to release me to be doing any kind of, to go down there. He said it was better to stay here until we knew my eye was in good shape. So I missed that. Actually, when we took our trip this year, we usually go in July, June or July, and it had only been about 3 months since my surgery, and he said that was just too soon to be leaving the country. So anyway, I didn't get to take my Brazil trip, and I haven't had a vacation all summer really, other than some of our 3-day weekends. So I'm going to take a vacation. Again, I'm not sure if I'll be gone Thursday yet. I'll let you know as we get to that, but I'll be gone Friday through Sunday, and I'll be back that Monday, but unless something changes. But just going to be like a little 3 or 4 day vacation. I just need a break to get away for a few days. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.